So let's do 5 minutes of tapping, and we won't be
Lovely.
able to solve the world, but hopefully if you tap along with us, you will feel a little bit calmer, a little bit lighter, and a little bit easier for approaching your meal times. So just tune into the feeling when you think about all this catastrophizing and what it means about you, and rate that on a scale from 0 to 10, and you can start tapping already. Just rate it on a scale from 0 to 10, 0 being calm, light and peaceful, and 10 being the worst. And notice where you feel that feeling in your body. And if you don't know, just guess, make it up, absolutely fine. And notice what the sensation is there. And if you don't know, if you did know, what would it be? And let's just start tapping. And if you tap along with me, you agree to take responsibility for your own well-being. And the invitation is to do what we do, say what we say. And if you don't like what we do or say, don't do it. If the words don't quite match how you're feeling, then just change them to match what is right for you. So let's do it. So even though I have a habit of catastrophizing, if I don't get that meal on the table in time, they won't get to bed in time. And then they're going to be tired. And it's going to be so hard getting them up. And then they won't get to school on time. And maybe they're going to get told off again.
Maybe I'll get told off.
Maybe I'll get told off. And I'm so doing my best.
And I'm so doing my best.
But it's not good enough.
It's not good enough.
At least that's what I'm telling myself. Because I'm not getting it right.
And
I acknowledge how that makes me feel.
And
I'm open to the possibility. Of trying to find some compassion for myself. Just the way I am.
Just to be that I am.
And just the way I'm not.
And just to be that I'm not.
Let's tap through the points. All of this catastrophizing. I've got to get those meals done on time. Because if I don't, they'll be late for bed. And if they're late for bed, I might be too tired to put them to bed. And I might lose my patience. And then I might feel guilty about it. And they'll wake up tired. And it will be so hard to get them to school on time. They'll end up being late. Maybe they'll get told off. Maybe I'll get told off. And that just makes me feel like a bad mum. And I'm trying so hard to get it right. But there's so much to think about. And my husband doesn't do any of that thinking. He doesn't even know how. I don't mean that just like in the planning.
It's so true.
In the planning way, I'm sure he knows how to think brilliantly, but when it comes to that kind of thinking, and it's all on me. And it feels like such an overwhelming responsibility. Such a burden. And if only I could get meal times right. Then I wouldn't have any of this problem. And maybe I still would.
Maybe I would.
Maybe it's not all about meal times.
Maybe it's not all about meal times.
And maybe it's nothing to do with meal times.
And maybe it's nothing to do with meal times.
Maybe it's everything to do with me.
Maybe it's everything to do with me.
And how I approach this situation.
And how I approach the situation.
I approach it with all of my background.
I approach it with all of my background.
Everything I've learned about being a parent.
Everything I've learned about being a parent.
From my own childhood.
From my own childhood.
From TV.
From TV.
From fairy tales.
From fairy tales.
And how it should be.
And how it should be.
At least according to our culture.
At least according to our culture.
And I put so much pressure on myself.
And I put so much pressure on myself.
To get it right.
To get it right.
And that's so hard.
And that's so hard.
And maybe I'm okay just as I am.
And maybe I'm okay just as I am.
Even with all my imperfections.
Even with all my imperfections.
Even if I don't get the meal on the table on time.
Even if I don't get the meal on the table on time.
Even if I don't get the kids to bed on time.
Even if I don't get the kids to bed on time.
Or to school on time.
Or to school on time.
It's not what happens.
It's not what happens.
It's what I tell myself about what happens.
It's what I tell myself about what happens.
So I'm open to the possibility.
So I'm open to the possibility.
Of finding some compassion.
Finding some compassion.
Even if that's an unfamiliar word.
Even if that's an unfamiliar word.
In my personal dictionary.
In my personal dictionary.
I wonder what I'd be telling myself.
I wonder what I'd be telling myself.
If I were able to have compassion for myself.
If I was able to have compassion with myself.
I wonder what I'd tell my best friend.
I wonder what I'd tell my best friend.
If she was going through that.
If she was going through that.
I'd probably be so much kinder.
I'd probably be so much kinder.
To her than I am to me.
Than I am to her than I am to me.
So I wonder how I can bring a little bit more kindness.
So I wonder how I can bring a bit more kindness.
Into myself and my situation.
Into myself and my situation.
I wouldn't treat others like I treat myself.
I wouldn't treat others like I treat myself.
I wouldn't expect them to be perfect.
I wouldn't expect them to be perfect.
But somehow I do expect myself to be.
But somehow I do expect myself to be.
I have all these high standards for myself.
All these high standards for myself.
And maybe it's time to soften that.
And maybe it's time to soften that.
I'm open to the possibility.
I'm open to the possibility.
Of finding a bit more compassion.
Of finding a bit more compassion.
For myself.
For myself.
My situation.
My situation.
My children.
My children.
My husband.
My husband.
And our relationships.
And our relationships.
Because the less attached I am to everything being perfect.
Because the less attached I am to everything being perfect.
The more I can flow.
The more I can flow.
The more I can let go of expectations.
The more I can let go of expectations.
Of having all family members.
Of having all family members.
Sitting at the table at the same time.
Sitting at the table at the same time.
The more I can release that disappointment.
The more I can release that disappointment.
When it doesn't go the way I want it to go.
When it doesn't go the way I want it to go.
the easier it will be for all of us.
The easier it will be for all of us.
And the calmer and more relaxed I am.
And the calmer and more relaxed I am.
The calmer and more relaxed my children will be.
The calmer and more relaxed my children will be.
It starts with me.
It starts with me. It does.
Yeah. So I wonder what I can do today.
So I wonder what I can do today.
To bring a little bit more ease.
To bring a little bit more ease.
Maybe even a little bit more fun.
Maybe even a little bit more fun.
And lightness.
And lightness.
Into the situation.
Into the situation.
I wonder what tiny little step.
I wonder what tiny little steps
I can take right now.
I can take right now.
To ease my situation.
To ease my situation.
And if that step seems too big.
And if that step feels too big.
I can break it down even further.
I can break it down even further.
And if nothing comes to mind.
And if nothing comes to mind.
That's okay too.
That's okay too.
So I'm bringing even more compassion.
So I'm bringing even more compassion.
And kindness to myself.
And kindness to myself.
With my situation just the way it is.
With my situation just the way it is.
And I'm infusing into my mealtime today.
And I'm infusing into my mealtime today.
Calmness.
Calmness.
Lightness.
Lightness.
Flow.
Flow.
Fun.
Fun.
Ease.
Ease.
Peace.
Peace.
Appreciation.
Appreciation.
Laughter.
Laughter.
Connection with my children.
Connection with my children.
Knowing and trusting that there's more than enough time.
More than trusting that there's more than enough time.
Maybe time can feel elastic for me.
Maybe time can feel elastic for me.
Today and every day.
Day and every day.
That's what I'm choosing for myself.
That's what I'm choosing for myself.
And I bring magic and miracles.
And I bring magic and miracles.
Into this meal and every mealtime.
Into this meal and every mealtime.
And just put your hands in the centre of your chest and say transform and take a deep breath.
Transform.
So one of three things will have happened when you think about the emotion that you started with. It will either have gone up, it will have stayed the same, or it will have gone down. Now, I really hope it's gone down. If it's stayed the same, write in the comments, and there's lots of tips and tricks with EFT that you can do that can really change that, but that's beyond what I can do on the video. If it's gone up, don't worry, it's probably because we've brought to the surface loads of issues and that you haven't been thinking about, and it can feel a little bit worse. If that's the case, don't worry, just go to the beginning of the tapping, repeat it, and it will dissolve and diffuse. Now, some signs that EFT has been working are that you might feel lighter, you might feel energized, you might feel heavier or more tired, you might feel tingling. So any of those are signs that the energy is shifting.